What the hell just happened? Bron Breakker has officially lost his mind and WWE management is in complete panic mode right now. I'm not even kidding when I say this might be the most disgusting display of unprofessional conduct we've seen since the Montreal screwjob, and if you think I'm being dramatic, you clearly haven't seen what went down backstage just hours ago. The wrestling world is in complete chaos tonight because Bron Breakker, the supposed future of WWE, the golden boy that Triple H has been shoving down our throats for months, just proved that he's nothing but a spoiled brat who can't handle real competition. And Bronson Reed? The man who's been busting his ass to prove he belongs in the main event scene just got blindsided by someone he probably considered a friend. But here's what's going to make your blood boil: WWE is trying to cover this up. They don't want you to know what really happened because it completely destroys their carefully crafted narrative about Bron Breakker being this respectful, humble superstar who earned his spot through hard work. Bullshit. This attack proves that Breakker is nothing more than a privileged legacy wrestler who throws temper tantrums when things don't go his way. And before you even think about clicking away, let me tell you something: what I'm about to reveal will change how you view both of these superstars forever. The footage I've obtained, the backstage reports from multiple sources, and the real reason behind this attack will shock you to your core. WWE doesn't want this story out there, which is exactly why you need to smash that like button right now and share this video before they try to take it down. Let me paint you the picture of what actually went down, because the sanitized version WWE is going to feed you through their corporate mouthpieces is complete garbage. This wasn't some storyline progression or character development, this was a legitimate assault that happened because Bron Breakker's fragile ego couldn't handle the fact that Bronson Reed was getting more respect from the locker room than he was. The tension between these two has been building for weeks, but WWE has been keeping it under wraps because they didn't want to damage Breakker's carefully constructed image. Multiple sources backstage have told me that Bron has been complaining about Bronson Reed's push, claiming that he doesn't deserve the opportunities he's been getting because he doesn't have the look that WWE wants for their top stars. Can you believe the audacity? Here's a guy, Bron Breakker, whose entire career has been handed to him on a silver platter because of his last name, having the nerve to question whether Bronson Reed deserves his opportunities? Reed, who spent years grinding in the independent scene, who proved himself in NXT, who has consistently delivered every single time WWE has given him a chance. It's absolutely disgusting. But what happened next will make you question everything you thought you knew about Bron Breakker's character. According to my sources, Reed was in the trainer's room getting treatment for a legitimate injury he suffered during his match earlier this week, an injury, by the way, that he worked through like the professional he is, never once complaining or asking for time off. He was vulnerable, he was hurt, and that's when Bron Breakker decided to strike. The attack itself was brutal and completely unprovoked. We're talking about a full-scale assault on a man who was already injured, defenseless, and had no idea what was coming. Breakker didn't just attack Reed, he targeted the same area that was already injured, showing a level of maliciousness that should have everyone in the WWE Universe questioning whether this is the kind of person they want representing their company. But here's where it gets even more infuriating: multiple wrestlers witnessed this attack, and not one of them stepped in to help Bronson Reed. The locker room culture that Triple H claims he's been building, this brotherhood and respect among the talent, it's all fake. When one of their own was getting brutally assaulted, they all just stood there like cowards. And don't even get me started on WWE's response to this incident. Instead of immediately suspending Bron Breakker and launching a full investigation, they're trying to figure out how to spin this into a storyline. They're more concerned about protecting their investment in Breakker than they are about the well-being of Bronson Reed, and that tells you everything you need to know about WWE's priorities. The medical staff had to rush Reed to a local hospital for additional treatment because the attack aggravated his existing injuries. This man, who has given everything to this business, who has entertained us week after week, is now suffering because some entitled brat couldn't handle his own insecurities. And where's the accountability? Where's the justice? WWE's silence on this matter is deafening. They've issued no official statement, they've taken no disciplinary action, and they're hoping that if they ignore it long enough, it will just go away. Well, I've got news for them: the wrestling community isn't going to let this slide. We demand answers, we demand justice, and we demand that Bron Breakker face real consequences for his actions. Let me break down exactly what this attack means for both of these superstars' careers, because the implications are massive. For Bronson Reed, this could potentially derail the momentum he's been building over the past several months. The man was finally getting the recognition he deserved, finally being positioned as a legitimate threat in the main event scene, and now he's dealing with injuries that could keep him out of action for weeks or even months. Meanwhile, Bron Breakker gets to walk away consequence-free, probably with WWE creative scrambling to figure out how to incorporate this incident into his character without making him look like the villain he actually is. They'll probably try to present it as some kind of intense competitor storyline, completely ignoring the fact that what he did was assault, plain and simple. But here's what WWE doesn't understand: the fans aren't stupid. We can see through their corporate spin and their carefully crafted narratives. We know the difference between entertainment and real-life violence, and what Bron Breakker did crosses every line of professionalism and human decency. The wrestling community has been buzzing about this incident all day, with fans on social media expressing their outrage and demanding answers. The hashtag Justice for Bronson Reed has been trending, with thousands of fans sharing their disgust at Breakker's actions and WWE's lack of response. This is exactly the kind of grassroots movement that forces WWE to take action, so make sure you're part of it. What makes this situation even more frustrating is the timing of this attack. Bronson Reed was scheduled to be part of a major storyline that could have elevated him to the next level of his career. He's been working incredibly hard to prove that he belongs in the main event scene, and he was finally starting to get the respect and recognition he deserved from both fans and his peers. But now, because of Bron Breakker's selfish actions, all of that progress could be undone. Reed might have to start over again, rebuilding momentum and proving himself all over again, while Breakker continues to coast on his family name and WWE's investment in his character. It's absolutely sickening. The locker room dynamics this has created are also worth discussing, because several wrestlers I've spoken with are disgusted by what happened. They're questioning whether they can trust Bron Breakker, whether he's the kind of person they want to work with, and whether WWE's lack of response sends the message that this kind of behavior is acceptable. One veteran wrestler, who asked to remain anonymous, told me that the attack has created a toxic atmosphere backstage, with many talent feeling like they need to watch their backs around Breakker. This is exactly the opposite of the culture that Triple H has been trying to build since taking over creative control, and it shows how one person's actions can poison an entire locker room. The fact that this attack happened while Reed was injured makes it even more despicable. In the wrestling business, there's an unwritten code about respecting your fellow performers, especially when they're vulnerable or hurt. Bron Breakker violated that code in the worst possible way, showing a complete lack of respect for the business and for his fellow wrestler. But let's talk about the real reason behind this attack, because it goes much deeper than just professional jealousy or creative differences. According to my sources, this stems from a conversation that happened several weeks ago during a talent meeting where Triple H was discussing future plans for both superstars. Apparently, Reed was being positioned for a significant push that would have put him in direct competition with Breakker for main event opportunities. When Breakker heard about this, he reportedly became visibly upset and made several disparaging comments about Reed's abilities and marketability. This wasn't just professional criticism, this was personal. The tension continued to build over the following weeks, with Breakker making passive-aggressive comments and trying to undermine Reed's confidence whenever possible. Other wrestlers noticed the toxic behavior, but everyone assumed it would resolve itself professionally. Nobody expected it to escalate to physical violence. What's particularly disturbing is that Breakker planned this attack. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment incident or an emotional outburst during a heated argument. According to witnesses, he specifically waited until Reed was alone and vulnerable in the trainer's room before launching his assault. That shows premeditation and malicious intent. The attack itself lasted several minutes, with Breakker focusing specifically on Reed's already injured ribs and back. He wasn't just venting frustration or sending a message, he was deliberately trying to cause maximum damage to end Reed's career momentum. That's not competition, that's attempted sabotage. Multiple wrestlers heard the commotion and came running, but by the time they arrived, the damage was already done. Reed was on the ground, Breakker was standing over him with this sick satisfaction on his face, and the medical staff was rushing in to assess the situation. It was like a scene out of a horror movie. What happened next is almost as disgusting as the attack itself. Instead of showing any remorse or apologizing for his actions, Bron Breakker just walked away like nothing happened. He didn't check on Reed's condition, he didn't express any concern for his well-being, and he didn't take any responsibility for what he had done. The medical evaluation revealed that Reed's injuries were significantly aggravated by the attack, potentially extending his recovery time by weeks or even months. This isn't just about missing a few matches, this could impact his entire career trajectory and cost him opportunities that might never come again. But here's what really makes my blood boil: WWE's medical staff initially tried to downplay the severity of Reed's injuries. They wanted to classify it as a minor aggravation of his existing condition, completely ignoring the fact that a deliberate attack had caused additional damage. It took Reed's personal physician to contradict their assessment and demand proper treatment. The cover-up attempt didn't end there. WWE officials immediately went into damage control mode, instructing everyone present to keep quiet about what happened and threatening consequences for anyone who spoke to the media or posted about it on social media. They were more concerned about protecting their image than protecting their talent. Several wrestlers were disgusted by this response and reached out to me with the real story because they felt WWE wasn't going to hold Breakker accountable. These are professionals who respect the business and couldn't stand to see one of their own attacked and then have it swept under the rug like it never happened. The psychological impact on Bronson Reed cannot be understated either. Being attacked by someone you considered a peer, someone you trusted, while you were already injured and vulnerable, that kind of betrayal leaves lasting scars. Reed is not just dealing with physical injuries, he's dealing with the emotional trauma of being blindsided by someone he never expected to hurt him. And what message does WWE's inaction send to other wrestlers? That if you're one of their chosen golden boys, you can assault your coworkers without consequences? That politics and favoritism matter more than basic human decency and professional conduct? It's absolutely disgraceful. The fan reaction to this incident has been overwhelmingly supportive of Bronson Reed and critical of both Bron Breakker and WWE's handling of the situation. Social media is flooded with messages of support for Reed and demands for justice. The wrestling community is united in their condemnation of this attack, but WWE is betting that if they stay quiet long enough, the outrage will die down and they can move forward without addressing what happened. They're counting on the short attention span of social media and the constant flow of new content to make people forget about this incident. We cannot let that happen. This is bigger than just one attack between two wrestlers. This is about the culture and values that WWE claims to promote versus what they actually tolerate when it suits their business interests. They talk about respect, professionalism, and sportsmanship, but when push comes to shove, they protect their investments over their principles. The timing of this incident is also particularly suspicious when you consider that Reed was gaining momentum and starting to overshadow some of WWE's hand-picked stars. Was this attack really just about personal animosity, or was it part of a larger pattern of trying to sabotage wrestlers who don't fit WWE's preferred mold? Think about it, Bronson Reed represents everything that old-school wrestling fans love about the business. He's worked his way up from nothing, proven himself at every level, and earned his opportunities through pure talent and determination. He's not a genetic lottery winner or a sports entertainment creation, he's a wrestler in the truest sense of the word. Meanwhile, Bron Breakker represents everything that's wrong with modern WWE. He's been fast-tracked because of his family connections, given opportunities that others had to fight years to earn, and positioned as a star before proving he deserved it. His attack on Reed symbolizes the entitled attitude of wrestlers who think success should be handed to them. The contrast between these two men couldn't be more stark, and maybe that's exactly why Breakker felt threatened. Reed's success exposes the hollow nature of Breakker's push and forces people to question whether he really deserves his spot. Instead of rising to the challenge and proving himself, Breakker chose to tear down his competition through violence. This incident also raises serious questions about WWE's wellness policy and their commitment to protecting their talent. They have strict rules about talent conduct and zero-tolerance policies for various behaviors, but apparently assault is acceptable if you're one of their favored superstars. The hypocrisy is staggering. Where's the drug test for Bron Breakker? Where's the mandatory anger management counseling? Where's the suspension pending investigation? If this were any other wrestler, especially someone lower on the card or less favored by management, they would have been fired immediately. The double standard is absolutely disgusting. The legal implications of this incident cannot be ignored either. What Bron Breakker did constitutes assault under the law, regardless of whether it happened in a wrestling context. Bronson Reed would be well within his rights to press charges and pursue civil action for his injuries and lost income. The fact that WWE is trying to handle this internally doesn't change the criminal nature of the act. But here's what's really going to make you angry. My sources tell me that WWE is actually considering turning this into a storyline. They're discussing how to incorporate the attack into their programming and use it to build heat for Bron Breakker's character. They want to profit from a real assault on one of their employees. Can you imagine the level of disrespect that shows to Bronson Reed? He gets attacked, injured, and potentially has his career derailed, and WWE's response is to figure out how to make money from his suffering. They're treating a real victim like a prop in their entertainment product. This is exactly the kind of corporate callousness that has driven so many talented wrestlers away from WWE over the years. When the company values storylines and stock prices over the well-being of their talent, it creates a toxic environment where incidents like this become inevitable. The wrestling media's coverage of this incident has been disappointingly sparse, with most outlets either ignoring it completely or parroting WWE's sanitized version of events. This is exactly why independent wrestling journalism is so important. Someone needs to tell the truth when the corporate machine is working overtime to suppress it. Major wrestling websites and podcasts have barely mentioned this incident, and when they have, it's been with the kind of corporate-friendly language that minimizes the severity of what happened. They're more concerned about maintaining their access to WWE than they are about reporting the truth. That's why channels like WrestlingNewsCC exist, to give you the real story without corporate interference or agenda-driven spin. We're not beholden to WWE's public relations department or afraid of losing press credentials. We're here to tell you the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes certain people. The silence from other WWE superstars has also been telling. Where are the locker room leaders speaking out against this incident? Where are the veterans who supposedly set the tone for professional conduct? Their silence is complicity, and it shows how broken the culture really is backstage. You would think that wrestlers who claim to respect the business and care about their fellow performers would be outraged by this attack, but instead, we get crickets from the locker room while one of their own suffers in silence. It's absolutely pathetic. The only wrestlers who have shown any integrity in this situation are the ones who reached out to provide the real story about what happened. They risked their own standing within the company to ensure that the truth came out, and they deserve recognition for their courage. But let's talk about what this means for the future of both of these superstars' careers, because the ramifications extend far beyond just this one incident. For Bronson Reed, this attack could fundamentally change how he's perceived and positioned within the company. Instead of being seen as a rising star, he might now be viewed as a victim, which unfortunately often leads to decreased opportunities in the wrestling business. The perception of weakness, deserved or not, can be career poison in WWE. Even though Reed did nothing wrong and was the victim of an unprovoked attack, there's always the risk that management will see him as damaged goods or someone who attracts drama. It's unfair, but it's the reality of the business.